And welcome back. The US Census Bureau announced on Friday that brand new single family home sales actually increased in January compared to December. So what the heck is happening? Because isn't our housing market supposed to be slowing down? So in today's video, I'm going to explain what's happening right now regarding new home sales in the US and kind of give you some context regarding why they actually increased in January. And with that said, I of course have a lot to share in today's video. This is based on a new report from the US Census Bureau that was just announced on Friday, February 24th. Can't talk. So again, from the Census Bureau, they're reporting that new home sales actually increased. And a friendly reminder here, I make this video every single month for you guys, but I have to say this because a lot of people who are new to the channel are probably watching this video here. So a brand new home sale is defined as a deposit taken or a sales agreement signed between a home buyer and a home builder. And this can occur prior to a permit being issued. So a new home sale can be a dirt lot in which the house can be completed, 6 to 12 months from now. It can be a home under construction, or actually can be a completed house. So when we're talking about new home sales, that's when a deposit's taken or a sales agreement is signed. So it's really acting more like a pending home sale rather than a closed home sale. Therefore, this is kind of like a leading indication of our housing market here in the US. So let's talk a little bit more what happened in January compared to previous months, and also talk about housing inventory for brand new houses as well. So by the way, these are for houses that actually sold. Again, these are only for single family only. It excludes, of course, multifamily and of course, commercial properties as well. So single family only. These are seasonally adjusted annualized rates for home sales. So for January, there was 670,000 on a seasonally adjusted annualized basis here. When looking at the trends right here, this is actually an increase by 7.2% compared to last month in December. But when looking at the sales pace compared to 1 year ago, we're still down by 19.4%. So there's a few more things I want to mention regarding the pace of new home sales this January, because at 670,000, the street was forecasting for 620,000 new single family home sales. And it came in above that at 670,000. Also, this is the second consecutive month of increases for home sales in the US. As you can see right here, we saw a slight increase in December, and again, a 7.2% increase in January. Additionally, at 670,000, again, the seasonally adjusted annualized rate, this is actually the highest rate of home sales going back to March last year. So what could be some possible explanations about why home sales actually increased in January compared to December? There's a couple of things I want to point out. One is based on a regional level here. So the Census Bureau breaks this down by the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, as well as the West. So look at this. On a month-to-month basis, again, an increase of 7.2% on a national level. But look at this. In the Northeast, it decreased by 19.4%. The Midwest decreased by about 7%, and also down by 7.3% in the West. So every region here, except for the South, recorded decreases in home sales. So this 17.1% increase of brand new single family home sales in January in the South is the sole reason why we had this increase of 7.2%. In other words, without this big increase in the South up by 17.1%, we would not be seeing this gain of 7.2%. I have a couple more explanations as well about why new home sales actually increased on a national level compared to last month. And as I note right here, actually mortgage rates fell in January. So to start January, rates were around 6.5%. They ended in January at about 6.2%. So because rates decreased, that could have enticed more home buyers to sign contracts with home builders. That's number one. Number two, the decrease in rates and also more incentives that home builders are offering home buyers. They're offering free kitchen appliances, free builder upgrades, buy downs on their mortgages, and other incentives that builders are using in order to entice and also increase home sales. So therefore, this increase of 7% compared to last month is solely due to this increase in the South, but also due to a decrease in mortgage rates overall, and also due to an increase of incentives that home builders are offering. All right, that's a summary regarding new home sales in the US. Let's also talk about housing inventory for brand new single family houses. So for this, supply is seasonally adjusted, but they're not annualized rates. So 439,000 is the number of houses for sale in the US seasonally adjusted, which, by the way, non-seasonally adjusted, there was 436,000. So at 439,000, this is actually a decrease by 2.9% compared to December. However, compared to 1 year ago, we're still up by 11.4%. Something else I noticed as well is that at 439,000, this is actually the third consecutive month of decreases in the number of houses for sale. And here's another way to look at that. Here's Uncle Fred's website here over the past year. The number of houses for sale, again, at 439,000. The third consecutive decrease going back to more or less November last year. Now, of course, one thing I definitely want to mention is that when we zoom out here, look at over the past 5 years. So at 439,000, this is actually below the peak that was set in October at 466,000, but this is well above pre-COVID levels back when the supply was in the range of 320,000 to about 340,000. Also, when you zoom out over the past 10 years, it actually is even worse as well. 439,000, well above any month going back to at least the last 10 years. And when we zoom out going back to 2008, the current levels right now at 439,000 is more or less on par with May of 2008. In other words, when looking at pre-COVID levels, we're at the highest levels going back to May of 2008. Let's also talk about the month's supply, because the month's supply right now is at 7.9 months. This is actually a decrease by 9.2% compared to December, but a giant increase of almost 39% compared to January of 2022. So a giant increase compared to 1 year ago and a significant decrease compared to last month. And on top of that, the month supply has been decreasing for 4 consecutive months. And again, here's Uncle Fred's website right here for housing supply. Again, has been decreasing for 4 consecutive months in the US at 7.9 months. The 12-month high was at 10.1 months set in September of 2022. When looking at the past 5 years, though, it's pretty crazy here because at 7.9, well below the highs, again, we saw back in September, as well as July last year at 10.1 months. Also, when we zoom out going back to January of 2008, when looking at pre-COVID levels, we're at the highest levels going back to February of 2011, when at that time there was 8.1 months supply. Okay, let's change gears again and talk about home prices here. The median sold price is at $427,500, a significant decrease compared to last month when the median sold price was just under $466,000. Also, when we look at home prices compared to 1 year ago, back in January of 2022, the median sold price was just over $430,000. This means the median sold price in the US has decreased by 1% compared to 1 year ago. When looking at the median sold price back in 2021, though, at just under $400,000 compared to $427,000 right now, this means home prices have increased by 7.7% compared to 2021. And of course, when looking at Uncle Fred's website right here at $427,500, this is much lower than the highs we saw back in October when the median sold price reached an all-time record high of just under $500,000. And also over the past 5 years, look at this. Pre-COVID, back in February 2020, home prices at $331,000 now has increased to just under $430,000. So even though home prices have come down by about 1% compared to 12 months ago, when you compare pre-COVID levels, when it was more normal to see prices in the range of $300,000 to $340,000, now it's just under $430,000. It's nice to see that home prices have come down by about 1% compared to 12 months ago, but this surge in home prices over the past several years is something worth noting. I also want to discuss with you guys the number of houses that sold by stage of construction. So again, there was 670,000 new single-family home sales on an annualized basis for January. So here's how it breaks down. Here's houses that have not yet started, homes under construction, and completed houses. So here's what really grabbed my attention here, because look at this. So for the houses that sold in January, there's 170,000 that came from houses not yet started. Last month, it was only 99,000. So by my dumb math, that's a 72% increase in the number of houses that sold that were not started yet. On top of that, at 170,000, this is actually the highest levels going back to last February at 172,000. So let me very briefly explain what this means. This means that people are putting a deposit down and signing a sales contract for a dirt lot in which the home builder has not started construction yet. In my personal opinion, this is very risky because we don't really know what our housing markets are going to look like in 6 to 12 months. Home prices could go down further, and also mortgage rates could increase further as well. In general, when you get your offer accepted on a dirt lot, in general, you cannot lock in your mortgage rate until the house is completed. There are some programs out there where home builders are offering incentives in order to lock in rates much sooner than that. But in my opinion, it's very, very risky. If I was looking for a deal on a brand new house, I actually would be focusing more on homes that are very close to being completed or completed houses, because builders are going to be much more motivated in order to sell a completed house because of all the costs involved in that versus a dirt lot, for example. So again, if you guys are looking to buy a new home, I would strongly urge you guys to find a completed home in which the home builder is much more motivated to sell that house versus a dirt lot. That's why it really surprised me to see this huge increase of houses that are not yet even started as of January here. Anyways, houses under construction was actually the biggest number here for houses actually sold at 269,000 out of the 670,000. But of course, worth mentioning here, not yet started. I don't understand that at all. Anyways, let's move on and talk about housing supply by stage of construction. So again, these are houses that are for sale by stage of construction. So again, there's 439,000 new single family houses that are technically for sale. So the vast majority of these houses are actually under construction. 280,000 out of the 439,000. Now here's something that also caught my attention as well. Here are completed houses that are technically for sale here. Completed houses ready for a home buyer to move in, right? So for January, there was 68,000 completed houses that were for sale. Again, this is the actual number. This is seasonally adjusted, but yeah, 73,000 is the actual number, but seasonally adjusted at 68,000. And I've been tracking this number for over a year now because this has been increasing steadily over the past 12 months or so. So look at this. Compared to 1 year ago, back in January of 2022, there's only 32,000 completed houses for sale. So again, by my dumb math, that's an increase of 112% on a year-over-year basis. Now, having said that, this is still a very low number compared to the overall number of houses for sale. At 68,000, this only represents about 15% of all the houses for sale, which is, of course, is 439,000. If we can kind of just take a step back here and talk about if this number right here was, let's just say 280,000 and under construction was only 68,000. So we had a giant increase in the number of houses completed that are still for sale. Our housing market would look a lot worse and home builders would be up against the walls. And speaking of completed houses, here's the month supply of completed homes. The month supply of completed homes is 2.4 months, a slight decrease compared to last year at 2.8 months. Now, having said that, the month supply of completed houses has been increasing ever since November last year. So I know that was a lot to cover in today's video, so I actually want to provide a summary right now for you guys. So again, there's 670,000 new single-family home sales, again, based on contracts being signed and not closed home sales. And that's a 19% decrease compared to 1 year ago, an increase of 7.2% from December. This, of course, was above the street's expectations of 620,000, came at about 50,000 over that. And also at 670,000, this is actually the highest rate of home sales since March last year. But of course, the South was the main reason why we saw this increase by 7.2% from December. Mortgage rates also decreased in January, and home builders have been offering incentives in order to drive home sales. And this, of course, could be one of the main reasons why we saw this increase of home sales in January. Inventory. So there's 439,000 new Single family houses for sale, not annualized, actual numbers here, seasonally adjusted, of course, down 2.9% on a month-to-month basis, the third consecutive monthly decrease of housing inventory. But it has increased by 11% compared to January of 2022. The month supply is sitting at a 7.9 month supply, and that's the fourth consecutive decrease in the US. Meanwhile, the median sold price decreased to $427,500, and that's a decrease by 1% compared to January of 2022. However, compared to 2021, for the year as a whole, compared to this January, of course, it's still up by about 8%. One thing I actually forgot to mention is that prices tend to fluctuate a lot more regarding new home construction numbers than the resale market. This is because there's a relatively small amount of new houses that sold versus existing. So for example, for January, the actual number of new home sales was 59,000 new single family houses. But for resale or existing houses, according to the National Association of Realtors, there was 231,000. In regards to the number of houses completed that are for sale, we're still at historically low levels, but has been increasing steadily over the past, more or less a year, an increase of 112% compared to 1 year ago. Now, having said that, this only represents 15% of all new single-family houses for sale as of the end of January. Now, here's my advice for you guys, because a common question I get is, should I be buying a house right now? Should I buy a brand new home? Here's my advice regarding new homes. So my advice is, I think, in my personal opinion, it's very, very risky to put a deposit down on a dirt lot in which you can't lock in your mortgage rate until the home is completed. As I mentioned right here, our market is clearly shifting. Prices are coming down. Builders are offering incentives in order to drive home sales, and housing inventory for brand new single family houses is still very high. So again, if you guys are looking to buy a new home, I strongly urge you guys to look for a completed house and try to work out a deal with the home builder. Now, regardless if you're looking to buy a new home or an existing house, here's my advice for you guys. And this is kind of the same advice I've been telling people for over 10 years of being a real estate agent here. So I'd say buy if you find a home you love, that you can afford, and you plan to own it for at least 7 to 10 plus years. In other words, have long-term time horizons if you're looking to buy a home. For people who call me up and say, hey, Jason, I want to buy a home, and I ask them, okay, well, how long do you want to own it? And they say, oh, I might want to sell it next year. I just tell them, you're probably better off to rent, because who knows what our housing market is going to look like in 1 year. So in other words, have long-term time horizons. Number 2, do not buy if you're going to stretch your finances and you have short-term time horizons. And number 3, do not buy if you cannot stomach the fact that you're going to be looking at the Redfin estimate or the Zestimate of your house, and you can't stomach the fact that your home price may decline in the short term. And with that said, please comment below the biggest takeaways from today's video. Also, if you guys got any value with this video whatsoever, then please hit the like button and click appreciate that. Of course, I appreciate you. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.